So today I'd like to talk about selflessness. Selflessness is really the goal of the spiritual path. Selflessness is what brings you beyond limitation. Selflessness is what brings you beyond suffering. It brings you to your eternal self. So selflessness is what we observe in our work, in our practice. Job yogis use selflessness to have greater success in work, because the self gives us all sorts of barriers, confusions, fears, doubts. And by practicing selflessness, we're able to go beyond them and have greater success in our work. More than that, selflessness brings us happiness and satisfaction in our work. And this is, the point of Buddha's teaching, right livelihood. So there were these two guys who decided to help out a coworker who was struggling to meet a deadline. So they stayed with him until like midnight, working on something, getting it done. And then when they accomplished it, one of the guys said, it feels so good to, selflessly help someone, because they didn't get anything out of it, but they helped their coworker. And he was like, wow, I just feel so much satisfaction. And then the other guy says, yeah, good point. I'm going to tweet that out. Maybe I'll get some more followers, because that's a cool thing to say. And definitely, let's get a selfie here. I'm going to put that on my Instagram. I'm going to put that on my Facebook. So one person did something and really felt, very high because of being selfless. And the other one did it with personal motivation, or eventually. So it's really important when you're helping another person. Selfless giving is a powerful motivation for selflessness, but you got to do it right. You can't have ideas of getting something out of it, because then that just builds more self. And sometimes, when people are trying to help out somebody else, they're pushing their own ideas on the other person. So it's like, when you want to help someone, as my teacher always said, make sure they see what you're doing is actually help. So there's a monkey. The monkey goes to the river, picks up a fish, climbs up the tree, puts it on the branch, and says, you got to be careful. You could drown in there. Right? Yeah, so we have to make sure that when we want to help someone, that we're doing it in a selfless way. Otherwise, it might not help. So in the Job Yoga book, I talk a lot about selfless giving. But selfless giving, when you do it right, it's powerful. It makes your work flow. So when you work, what are you working for? Who are you working for? Your boss. But you're usually working in a way of self. But if you have a way of selflessness in your work, then all of your work is not toil. It's very, very, very beautiful and fun. So I had a student who she came onto a team that was struggling to finish a project. And she came in, and they had been working on it a lot, and they were hitting all these walls and barriers, and she just was like, wow, look how upset they are, look how stressed out they are. And she was like, I'm going to help them. she's compassionate. And so she spent a couple weeks working long hours, taking on the biggest challenges and the hardest obstacles, and then she was able to solve it because she was selfless. So more power came out of her than that whole team had for her to solve their problems. And she worked long, long, long hours. And she had energy. She was happy. She wasn't drained and tired. So when you have the motivation to help someone else, then a lot of energy comes out of you. Your work flows. Even if you do more work, it's not something that makes you tired or drained. So selflessness is very powerful.